Hi, this is Mike Serrano with OrbTV, and we're here at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. Today we're joined by Jamie Davies, a journalist with telecoms.com, focusing on AI, cloud, and security, right?
Yes, yeah. So more not the hardcore techie topics, but sort of like cloud, security, AI, looking at the regulation side of things as well. So that's the area I focus on.
Okay. So these are all very hot topics, I would imagine you're hearing here around Barcelona and Mobile World Congress. What's the discussion on the regulatory front?
It's a strange one because obviously I think one of the standout performers from the main conference room this week was Ajit Pai, and some of his quite unpopular, shall we say, or depending on what camp you sit in, unpopular moves towards net neutrality. And I think that from a regulation perspective, it's just interesting to see how different North America and Europe are in terms of sort of tackling the sort of the net neutrality question. One thing that I think will be absolutely fascinating was we were in the Ericsson press conference on Monday morning, and the CEO came forward and he seemed to put quite a pro anti-net neutrality stance forward. So whether that sort of net neutrality argument is going to come over to the European markets over the next sort of couple of months remains to be seen. But I don't know, he might be trying to bribe, sort of like emotionally blackmail his way into the good books of the telcos, or whether he believes it. But his big comment was, not all data is created equal. So quite a not a very European stance.
Can you kind of give us a quick overview of the difference between North America and European perspectives on net, maybe a little overview on net neutrality, and then the difference in the two approaches?
I think it's, in terms of net neutrality, I mean, the arguments are still the same on both sides of the Atlantic, but I think it's more the idea of how many rights citizens have in EU and in North America. So obviously it's a lot more concrete in the European markets, where legislators and regulators are very, very pro privacy, and I think that is starting to leak through in terms of how data can be monetized, where it can be stored, how much access intelligence agencies have. I mean, it's a lot more stringent and a lot more complicated over in the European markets.
Is that what they're talking about when they talk about
GDPR?
GDPR.
Yes.
Okay.
So that is essentially, it's one of the big regulatory changes, and it means a whole host of things to different sectors and different verticals. But it is essentially giving the power of data back to the consumer. So the idea of opt-in, opt-out, the right to delete. So those are the big arguments. The big complication, and it'll be interesting to see if this comes across into the American markets as well. The big complication is that a lot of these companies that have to be GDPR compliant, and we're not just talking telcos, we're talking any company that holds data, they have to figure out what data they have first. So that's there's been some huge discovery audits. And I've been speaking to a few people in the industry, and they're going, we did this audit, and then we found out we're holding all this data on our customers and our employees, and we had no idea we had it. And they said if they hadn't done these audits, they would have been they wouldn't have been GDPR compliant, and the fines are monstrous.
Oh, really?
It's either 3% of your annual revenue turnover, or total revenues, or 20 million euros, whichever is greater.
And you still need to comply.
You still need to comply.
Gotcha.
So it comes in on the 25th or 24th of May, I think.
Okay.
And that's a hard deadline. There's no grace period. if you are non-compliant on the morning of the 25th, you're going to face a huge fine.
Now, is there an enforcement mechanism in place, or is it self-reporting?
No, so there is. It's that wonderful little up to metric that we see. So the fine is up to 3%, but I imagine that the onus is put on the country's regulators. So, for instance, in the UK, although it's European-wide regulation, in the UK, for as long as we're in the UK, the Information Commissioner's Office is responsible for sort of like as the strong arm of Europe. But there are extenuating circumstances. So I think we'll see. First of all, how sort of sharp the teeth are of the regulators, whether they've actually got any bottle, which I'm not really convinced they have. But then at the same time, if people do report it, if it is sort of like a self-governing thing and they own up, does that mean they're going to get less of a fine or avoid a fine? There's a lot of unknowns at the moment, so a huge number of unknowns.
Interesting. So there's been some discussion, or I've heard some discussion around personal blockchain, where my data, my information is in a blockchain. I own the blockchain. I control the blockchain.
Okay.
What do you think? Are we going to get there where I can control all my personal data?
I'd like to say yes. I would like to say yes.
Okay.
And I think that's what regulators are trying to do. They're trying to put the control of the control of information back in the hands of the consumer. I'm not personally convinced that people are that bothered by it. There's some people are massively bothered by it, but it's silly little things like no one actually knows where their data is. So how can you have a full grasp of it?
That's true.
Like, for instance, the best case example is like when you download Clash of Clans, for instance, or those rubbish games on Google Play. No one actually reads the terms and conditions, and every single game you hand over the right to that information that you give. So you've lost control of that data. And I've done it, I'm guilty of it, downloading an app, playing around with it for 10, 20 minutes, and then deleting it. I've got no idea who the developer was, and I've got no idea where my data is. And I think there's just so many thousands and millions and billions of instances like that around the planet where no one really knows where their data is.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting. I had a conversation with a colleague of mine some time ago whose son is a millennial, and the conversation, as I heard it, was, is there any concern about not that you get a lot of stuff for free, but it's not really free, it's at the expense of your personal data? And the young person was like, yeah, okay, they'll make that trade-off. It's cheaper than paying.
Yeah.
But it does have expense. It can be expensive on the back end because they can target you with marketing and a whole bunch of other stuff.
I think it is literally a case of understanding what the trade-off is. I mean, people have got used to, I think this is possibly the industry's own fault in itself, because there was no education in the early days of, you'll get this for free, but this is the reason why you're getting it for free. And I think that escalated and sort of snowballed, and everyone just thought they were getting stuff for free and didn't understand how these companies were making money. And then all of a sudden someone turned around and said, this is the way they make money, how do you feel about that? And loads of people got really paranoid about it.
That's true, yeah.
But I think, I'm okay with the trade-off. I should be, that's how we fund telecoms.com. That's how we make money. Yeah. But it is one of those things. I think the industry made its own problem by being a little bit cloak and dagger to start with.
Yeah. So do you think, just a little closing, are regulators getting up to speed with technology? I mean, technology is changing very quickly, and I know 10 years ago, the regulatory infrastructure was so far behind. They just didn't understand what was going on. Are they getting closer? Are they getting better?
It's a thankless task, really, isn't it? 'Cause because it's not so much the speed. Well, I mean, obviously everything is evolving so quickly; it's impossible for them to keep up. But at the same time, you look at the competency. I mean, don't get me wrong. This is going to sound quite rude because I'm not very pro public sector. But the competency of people who work in house isn't that great. So so you got people that aren't as qualified trying to keep up with these super trends that are moving so quickly. But it's the variety now as well. You look at, there are so many different use cases that are popping up all over the place. It's like, where do you start? And
That's true.
How many bodies have you got in the office that can actually, this VR use case, let's have a look at how that works. Or VR just looking at VR full stop. You got automotive, you got healthcare, you got gaming, then you got structural design. You got all these little individual areas that have to be regulated. And how many hours are there in the day?
That's true.
So long answer short, no, I don't think they are catching up, and I'm not incredibly confident that they ever will catch up either.
That could be problematic for the industry.
I think it will be incredibly problematic, yes.
Well, thank you for your time. It's been
No
a pleasure
problem.
chatting with you. Take care. For OrbTV, this is Mike Serrano. Thank you for tuning in.